Serious men have read it who have had an abusive wife or girlfriend. What did you do to get out of it? Literally? And are you in an unhealthy relationship? Poster in my office building. I walked by it every day and eventually took it seriously. I'm a woman, but this is what I'm dealing with right now. I keep reading it in thinking number he doesn't Fitex box, but then a week will go by and the boxes checked in the list grows more and more accurate. TL doctor she was crazy, but her dad was cool. I dated this girl for over a year because I just couldn't figure out how to get rid of her. She was insanely jealous, and any discussion of my unhappiness in our relationship just brought accusations of cheating. These inevitably led to punching and kicking. I never really felt like I could fight back. Any action to defend myself would probably have ended with me getting arrested. She was much smaller than me, so most police would most likely take her side. I was trapped. Eventually, her father came to visit the first time he and I were alone together. He immediately asked if I was okay. He said he knew how she could be. This confused me at first. I barely knew him and didn't know if I could trust him. Just told him everything was fine. It had been for a few weeks. He stayed a few days, and by the end of his visit I could see he was just a cold dude who knew his daughter had issues. A couple months later, I reached my breaking point. I was miserable. I just wanted her out of my life. I looked in her address book for his number and called. I told him I couldn't take it anymore and was trapped unless I defended myself with physical force. He sighed and said, "Can you hang on till Thursday?" He told me he'd make the 8-hour drive to my house if I could wait a few days. On Thursday afternoon, we were standing in the kitchen when there was a knock on the door. She answered, surprised to see her dad. "What are you doing here?" "Dad." He just shrugged and stared at me. I blurted it out, "I'm breaking up with you. We're done." She charged at me with clenched fists, but he was ready. He grabbed her from behind and put her in a full Nelson. Hold. She was dragged like this across my driveway and thrown into the back seat of his car. The last time I saw her, she was trying to kick out his rear window as he drove away. There's a good possibility I may owe my life to that dude. I feel really bad for him. She was otherwise a wonderful person, but if she lost her temper, look out. Hopefully she found help. Her dad must be Asen. After 10 years, I started setting and holding boundaries and gave myself a bottom line for what kind of treatment I would and would not accept. Largely thanks to advice from my therapist and some really good friends. She started sensing that she no longer had control over me and made a big show about moving out to try and get me back under her thumb. I just continued holding my boundaries and bottom line, which further enraged her. She caused a huge dramatic scene by coming over in the middle of the night demanding to take the dog. I changed the locks, the garage code, the Netflix password, kicked her off the Google Play family plan, made a therapy appointment, and scheduled a meeting with the lawyer to get my options. Armed with this new information, I told her I was done and that she could lawyer up if she wanted to, put that I was willing to pay as much as it took to make sure I was out. That was a month ago, and I've never felt better. If you hear a little voice inside you saying to get out, let it take over. Become your own advocate, get your life back, not the Netflix password. I would classify my ex as an emotionally abusive and manipulative person. This culminated in her cheating on me, denying it when I found out, and then trickle-truthing me and our group therapist for months. I eventually decided that I had gained everything I could from our group sessions and ended all contact with her. I blocked her everywhere. Months later, she contacted me through chat of all things, saying that she had information that affected my health and that I would suffer the consequences if I did not reply. I did and was told a few things. One, she allegedly had hepatitis C, doubtful really, since it is so rare to get from hospitals. One, she had seen our therapist, who now totally agreed that I was at fault to lie since I had seen her only a week before for an individual session, and she mentioned having not seen my ex in months. One, she was now seeing 2 other therapists that both agreed that I was a villain whatever. After our conversation, during which I told her that I thought she was a dangerous person for me to be around, she contacted many mutual friends on Facebook and told them that I was unsupportive during her time of need. Several of them, mostly those who only knew me as her boyfriend, unfriended me. No big loss. I got tested for STDs just in case, was found clean and haven't heard from her since. My sister's partner was abused by his girlfriend for 10 years. The only reason he left was 2 of his friends literally kidnapped him to save his life. Quite truly, she nearly killed him twice, once by breaking a marble chopping board in his head. She also tried to castrate him with a knife. He was so scared of leaving the house, he sewed it up with fishing line. His friends took him out to the country, and while he didn't get over it, he realized he could survive on his own if he has a PTSD depression, and his epilepsy had got worse over the years since, probably because of the head injuries he sustained from her. We've been slowly supporting him to break the conditioning she left him with. He will apologize for anything, even if it isn't his doing. He has improved over the years I've known him, and he has supported my sister greatly after she lost her husband. She cherishes him for his utter selflessness, loving nature, and the joy he takes in being loved without cruelty. Be happy and loved by someone who truly deserves you. Holy crap, what a psycho. Good on his friends for getting him out. I insisted on divorce after years of attempted couples therapy. We were together for 15 years and unhappy for at least half of it, off and on like a roller coaster. I tried way too hard to make it work out of pride and embarrassment. She was abusive, unfaithful, emotionally unstable, a financial burden, and a batshit crazy succubus. I filed everything procept, gave her $40K and absorbed $9K of her debt in exchange for my freedom. No kids involved, but I lost the dog. The latter is what hurt me the most. When all was done, it was so worth it, and I only wish I had abandoned the sinking ship years earlier. Life is too short. 3 years later, I'm happy another ever with a great dog, financial freedom, supportive friends, and a wonderful family. I lost my dog in the divorce, too. Still think about him all the time. Hurts, man. My first GF was wicked abusive. I tried to break up with her after a few weeks, and she slit her wrists in front of me to prove how much she loved me. I was 15 and terrified. We ended up dating 2 years because she would threaten suicide, and I was not in a good place due to my mom's gambling. I was homeless for a few months, and she tried to make me depend on her non-stop. When I finally broke it off, I just cut all contact. She had moved schools the week prior. She stalked me for years after and told people I raped her, even though we never went beyond kissing. I lost a lot of friends because her lives. The last time I had contact with her was when I was in Iraq and my mother just died. She sent me a message on Facebook saying condolences for my mom. I didn't even know she passed yet. She even sent flowers to her funeral. She freaking terrifies me. X was a fighter. In other words, her emotional response to pretty much a thing was to get P off and pick an argument. All of the following happened several times. Had a bad day at work. Pick a fight about dinner. Flight was delayed. Here comes an argument over text. Didn't like the music playing in the gym. Started an argument with me. Let that sink in. She didn't like the music in a public place, so dragged me into an argument. She loved to debate and would pick apart not just every word I said, but the inflection in every word. The arguments could be about anything. She was a master of finding a single minor detail and then picking at the edges of it until she worked herself until a rage and blew up. It finally got too much when I was having anxiety attacks and developing hands tremors. I was trying to think all the way through conversations before they happened, so that I wouldn't say anything to set her off. It was like a switch flipping when it went. 1 minute I was groveling and trying to talk my way out of another argument. The next I just calmly said enough is enough. I can't do this anymore, and hung up the phone. Haven't spoken to her since. Christ, this would put me on edge so bad. Emotional abuse counts. Possibly. She pushed me to the point where I just stopped doing anything that made me happy. I was beyond depressed. Still kind of bounces back and forth depending on the day that it was bad. One day she started an argument and jokingly asked when I would move out. I told her by the end of the week. There it is, throw away, because I still have to see her mind now. Ex-GF was pretty abusive, both verbally and emotionally. At first, she would yell at me for things like holding her hand or not, but eventually it got to the point where she started to hit me. Worst part was she emotionally beat me down until I tried to take my own life, and afterwards kept telling me she was the only one there for me. She would tell me I couldn't push her away because I'd have no one else. It ended after we fought, and she punched me because I didn't kiss her. I stood up to her, and we broke up. She ended up leaving me in the city and told me to find my own way home. Well, I did, and now we don't talk. I just have to see her a few times a week. It's vague, but I'd rather not go into too much detail. She's a Redditor, and she already spreads enough crap about me. She told me one day she was going to get pregnant whenever she wanted, and I didn't have a say. She told me she'd just stop taking her pills without telling me. I refused to let her bring another life into this. I left. Smart move. I was with the mother of my kids for 6 years. She slapped me, threatened me, and slapped many of her friends. She got into a fight with my much larger brother and freaked up his nose. She was mentally abusive. I just stayed because of my kids, which I know is wrong. I was always thinking she was cheating on me, and caught her a few times lying who she was with, and whether she is at work or not. Out of 6 years, she worked maybe 3 while I supported her and our kids. Turns out I was right, she had been cheating for almost the entire time. I have to get to DNA test for my she also gave me to Stee that I had to clear up what broke. The last straw was the second Stee. She admitted to sleeping with 8 people, but I found out 2 more she didn't admit to. Unfortunately, I have to deal with her for the rest of my life because kids I lucked out. She broke into my house and attempted to steal my dogs, smashing a bunch of family heirlooms. Cops were called, and since her mailing address was still at my residence, they couldn't compel her to leave, and it wasn't technically breaking and entering. The cop had his floodlight on us, and she, like many times before, lost it and began punching me in the face. They then gave me an order of no trespass. I was with Jendo for exactly 1 year and 2 months. She was always controlling me, manipulating me, and the worst part, convincing me. Everything that ever happened was always Ben around, so it was my fault. Regardless of what happened, I could never win with her. She knew how I worked in and out, and played me like a board game. So I told her, quite literally, that I was sick of her having control over my life and those in my life, unraveling everything she had woven in place to keep me in check. I got back in touch with the friends she made me kick out of my life, started doing the things she didn't like me doing, including drawing, which for some reason she despised. And I watched her self-destruct before I finally ended it with a polite, "I'm breaking up with you. I expect my belongings back next Monday. I'll have yours as well." The next few months were the best of my life. I was so free, practically limitless. Catching up with friends over a Little Caesars that was nearby, as well as the 7-Eleven that was attached to the LC building, energy, drinks, pizza, and Xbox. Until 6 a.m. was the best way to catch up with one of the friends I lost. I miss those days. I'm having a lot of trouble letting go of my ex because of a recent relapse, but this post makes it so much easier. It sounds exactly like him, and I'm so happy I left. Thank you. I got out of it by moving back in with my dad at the age of 38. The abuser was an active alcoholic addict with undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. We had been together about 10 years in a toxic relationship. She was manipulative and emotionally abusive. I was no some either. Then she started getting physical, and that was when I had a moment of clarity. She was trying to wrestle my debit card away from me so she could go buy more liquor, and I realized if I kept going on with her, things would get worse physically, and I would be the one going to jail. So I threw some stuff in a bag and left for my dad's house. I ended up staying there for about a month while she spiraled further out of control. Eventually, she agreed to get help and spend a weekender detox, and I was able to move back home. I got sober as a result, and with a lot of help from family, friends, and things I don't understand, have stayed sober since. After Dita's, she spent about 3 months in a recovery house. Sadly, it didn't take, and she continued to drink and use, but I couldn't let her go. We dated off and on during the times she could stay sober. Eventually, she started seeing someone else and play us off each other, dragging me back into the thick of it. She moved back in with me about 2 years after I first left. History repeated itself, and about 18 months later, I had to head back over to my dad's house because she was getting worse and more physical than ever. Just over a month later, she went away to a recovery community for around 9 months. She managed to get to a year of sobriety, and we went out a few times, but she was still manipulative and started playing me off other guys again. That she relapsed. I cut it off and went no contact. She would pin me every 6 months or so, but we never engage again. Overall, the relationship devoured over 17 years of my life, and I'm still not completely over it. She died of H overdose about 6 months ago. Row that last sentence. I'm sorry you devoted so much time to what ended up being a lost cause. I hope you don't attribute an ounce of blame to yourself. You did all you could. Luckily, she moved 3 hours away. I broke up with her right before she was leaving for the weekend to look at apartments in her new city. I was told to break up with her in a public place, but I caved when she insisted on coming in. That was, of course, a huge mistake. She wouldn't accept that I was serious about dumping her and wouldn't leave, saying that she had a headache and it wasn't safe for her to drive home. She spent the rest of the night trying every manipulative trick she had to win me back, even telling me that she loved me for the first time. I gave her a non-committal "we'll see," which was enough to get her out of my apartment the next morning. Once she left, I went no contact and stopped replying to her messages. I would have called her at taxi when she said it wasn't safe for her to drive home, went to jail for it. She bayed my face and clawed my arms, both drawing blood, and the cops were called. She was taken away, but I ended up being charged a few days later. Because she was smaller than me. I got a crap lawyer and had to take her plea, spent 5 days in jail after a tour in Afghanistan. After that, I moved home with my parents. We started at a community college, ended up with my BA, and later on a NEMD and moved to a new state. My life is great now. Wish I'd known how to get out of that sooner and with less damage. Had a GF once that in her crazy well for a while, but I had a few experiences with PG versions in the past with other women and started to see the signs, like if I didn't text back right away, she would get angry and possessive and pee off. She was always wondering where I was, who I was with. Ect insisted I see her every night or I must be mad at her and were apologize for whatever she did to make me mad. I was in school full-time and working full-time to pay for it, so I did not have a lot of free time. Didn't matter, that sort of thing. It got to the point where she was threatening to commit suicide if I didn't text her back, even while I was at work. So I did what I thought was best and told her we are done. I totally cut contact with her after that cold turkey. I make it my purpose to never go near where she lived or where she worked, blocked her on social media, no contact. I felt like a total dong, but there was no letting this girl off easy without a serious crap storm. She would have all-day conversations with herself through text without me saying a word, beginning with "please don't leave me, yada yeah." Then she would get angry and send full-page texts of all the gold fricka piece of crap. "Mother, I'm the best you'll ever have." Then "sorry, I was yelling, I just love you so much." Then "if you don't text me back, I am going to kill myself." Then "I'm sorry." Worry for saying that this happened every day, for a month. I felt terrible for her, but I knew that if I texted back even once, she would win. I would call her friends to tell them she needed their help, and almost called the police a few times to check on her. But it was all a ploy for me to respond to her. She would never go through with it. So I ended up contacting a friend of mine who was a cop for advice, and he said to change your phone number and forget about it. So that's what I had to do. Found out a few years later that she had to move back in with her parents because she was self-charming. She was doing this long before I showed up and couldn't hold down her job forth in a year. She made me feel like a real piece of crap the entire time and responsible somehow for her issues. But another part of me knows if it hadn't been me, it would have been someone else. So to answer your question, it was not clean, it was not easy, and it was not without learning a lot about myself in the end. I hope my story helps. Good luck. P was with a girl that turned out to be a hardcore alcoholic and wasn't even 21. Also did C and pills, would try and beat the frick out of me when drunk. Was also emotionally abusive. She actually broke up with me because I was lame and complained when I found out she lied about being at parties, and crab she tried to get back with me and fricking stalk me. Sought out my family members in public, and Harris then waited in the parking lot for me to get out of the gym. It was fricking weird. I eventually moved away. She locked herself in a bathroom ex-Mars morning with a chef's knife and threatened to kill herself. So I involved the police. She sounded serious. They show up, pull her out of the bathroom, take her outside for questioning. By this point, she'd destroyed thousands worth of personal effects, and the damage was evident all over my house, including a shattered window where she threw a skateboard wheel at my head. I'm covered in scratches, cut and bruises. The only mark she had on her is from where she ran into the corner of the wall at full force trying to get to me. A police arrested me in my house. I didn't engage in any of the violence and destruction of property. I didn't even raise my voice at her, spent ex-Mars in a jail cell. After the ensuing court fiasco, I didn't and couldn't see her again. She came and got her crap out of my house while I was at work a few days later. Don't let it get to that point like I did. Once the violence starts, it never ends peacefully. What's the worst thing your boyfriend/girlfriend has done to you? I had been dating this guy for about 4 months. We went out for dinner one evening, his treat. I was really starting to fall for him by this point. So we're at dinner and he goes to the washroom. He's gone for a really long time, and I check my phone, text message from him. But just left me with both our meals, which I had to pay for. He drove, and so I had to take it home. Don't know what happened to make him leave, but probably for the best. He definitely crapped his pants. I got married when I was 19. Things weren't great. I went back to school, meaning I was in bed by 9 to get up at 4 a.m. to travel hours to school. We were seeing a lot of each other as he normally worked until midnight. He was rocking paying the bills while I worked to get a better job. One day, the bank called me saying they were going to charge me fraud because I'd used my debit card, inserting paper as a check and taking out cash. It was my husband. I knew something was up. Couple months later, I found out he was smoking crack. I searched the app and found spoons, lighters, baggies, etc. I asked him and he admitted everything. He was smoking crack every night while I slept. Nothing had been paid, and we were basically fricked. I was 15, my girlfriend of 3 years. It was crappy, mind you, but you were 12 when you started going out when I was 12. I still wanted to be an injured turtle. Dang, I still want to be an injured turtle. An ex of mine cheated on me in the bathroom down the hall from my bedroom on New Year's Eve. 2 weeks later, I find out that she has hidden the fact that she had a child that a friend was raising for over 9 months. Him just glad that I dodged that bullet of crazy. My boyfriend failed to wash his hands before going down on me. His hands had slapped your mamo seasoning on them. My tea was on fire. I briefly considered going to the hospital. We've been married for 7 months now. Upvote for happy ending. I'm posting this for my fiancé about me. The other night, I was sick with the flu. I also ate something that had upset my stomach. On top of the flu, because I'm an idiot. We went to pick up some medicine for me, and on the way home, I told him to floor it because I needed to throw up and have explosive diarrhea at the same time. Oh, did I mention that we were visiting his parents at the time? It was splendid. By the time we got to his parents' house, I was exploding from both ends. I sprinted to his bathroom and decided to take care of the poop first. Well, after taking the crap of a lifetime, I clogged the toilet. Panicking, I grabbed the plunger and tried to unclog the unholy discharge of my bowels. As this is happening, I'm gagging. The toilet water stopped flowing when it reached the top, and because I wasn't enough of an idiot already, I thought to myself, heard Erlet try to flush the toilet now, so I flushed again. The water began flowing over the rim of the bowl. My soft, squishy poop was plopping over onto the floor.